Guys, so for this Squeaks Scrappy Wednesday, I decided to show you how I made a Shabby Chic style Valentine's Day card. So keep in mind that the majority of this card was made from scrap paper that I had collected over the years. So realistically, if you do decide you want to try using this tutorial as like a template for your own card, you really don't need the exact same papers that I used. So basically I cut the edge here so that I could see a little bit of the eggshell paper from the actual card and distress the edges of it a little bit more so it would kind of match the same tear that was already there. Because with mixed media shabby chic stuff, you really don't want to have like super straight and harsh lines. The softer the things, the better. So I decided to use this other sheet that has a bunch of cupids on it, and I used this side because I figured the polka dot plain pink side looked too plain compared to the red. I wanted something else to like really pop, but the red to still subdue the really loud paper. So for my glue, I used Fabri-Tac. I've been using this stuff for years and you can get it for super cheap at Walmart. Honestly, if you try buying it at like Michael's, it's gonna be way more expensive than just $50. I'm pretty sure at Michael's you can spend like 30 bucks on the same size, like totally not worth it. So I left the link in the description for all of the things I used if you're curious. And when I was looking through designs, I ended up finding this one that had all my molding paste designs. So I did want to do that, but unfortunately my molding paste completely dried out. So I gave up on that idea and continued with these circles instead. So using more scrap paper from the lines, it's actually the majority of the papers that I used from this, if you're curious, is from Authentic Paper's Smitten line, but unfortunately it's not being sold anymore. So if you want to do this kind of card, I really would say don't think about too much of the exact paper you're using. Really, if you're just using any kind of paper that with colors that have a similar look to this, like it's gonna look just as good as this card, I think. So while I was letting those two circles dry on that glitter glue paper, I decided to use this scrap paper that has a little heart that says "You hold the key" as like a centerpiece between the two circles. And even though I liked the banner it had originally with the lace around it, it just wouldn't have been good to try to cut around that design. It wouldn't have looked as clean. So that's why I used the opposite side so that the paper would still match well with this tone of pink. And I used my lifting tape to make it look a little bit higher. It's a bit hard to tell, but it gives a little bit more dimension to the card if you do decide to use lifting tape, if that makes any sense. I'm still getting used to like doing super fast tutorials, so please let me know how I'm doing. So after I decided I couldn't use the molding tape and I still wanted something else, I decided to use my embossing powders and my glitter glue to add a little bit more extra to this red paper. So the reason I use the glitter glue first is because I haven't quite found out how to use embossing powder correctly. I feel like I'm using it wrong. So I use the glitter glue to kind of like solidify it onto the paper a little bit, and then I use this embossing tool to melt it to the paper. It literally just completely melts the embossing powder so it stays to the paper. So I put some more lifting tape on all of these circles and hearts, or heart, and when I was playing around with the position of them, I realized that this heart would need more than one piece of lifting tape so that it would be lifted up high enough above the two circles. So that's why I just slapped on two. But unfortunately, the adhesive with that tape is a little bit flimsy, so I would suggest using the Fabri-Tac in between each thing to really make sure it sticks down. Because when you do mixed media, you use kind of heavy stuff, so that's why I use the Fabri-Tac, because it literally glues everything. It's fantastic. So in this little corner, I did feel like it was a bit plain, so that's why I threw some Recollection flowers in there, and I'm pretty sure this type is actually a Kaisercraft, but you can honestly get them from the Recollections brand in Michael's, and it's not going to make much of a difference. So for this ribbon, it was a scrap piece, so unfortunately I could not link it down below, but it's basically a tulle type of thing, so I ripped off the edges and added this twine piece that is from Michaels underneath of it, since I felt like the plain white tulle wasn't quite enough for my liking. So through my Miss Decor drawer, I have all these little chains and stuff, so I thought I'd continue with like the key theme and just put out all of those keyholes and keys so I could experiment with it later once I got the majority of the paper that I decided to play around with done. The thing is with mixed media, it's a lot more playing around than thinking I have to do this strict layout. So a lot of the time when I'm doing these cards, I just rip and tear pages that have the same color scheme of what I'm going for and just play it, folding and ripping and even just scrunching all together sometimes I've done, and just placing it randomly, and before gluing it down deciding, okay, I've tried all these different spots and I think it looks the best here, let's go with that. So you really have to be patient with yourself when you're learning, because I know when I was first starting this, it got really frustrating thinking, why can't I make these cards look as good as like these Pinterest worthy ones? But eventually you learn what patterns go with what kind of tears look better with different sections of the card, I guess you could say. And yeah, it's just like a learning curve you have to go through. So I thought the pink still looked a little bit plain, so that is why I decided to add a random strand of pearl ribbon. And whenever I solidify these kind of thin ribbons, I usually like how they randomly fall, but then when you're standing up the card, it doesn't quite stay where you want it to, so that's why I glue little bits of the ribbon so that it'll look like it's effortlessly flowing off the side of the pages and stuff, but in reality it's just stuck there, so then it won't move after years. Because realistically, with these cards, you don't want to throw them away. You want to have them displayed, so that's why I try to glue as much as I can down so that it can stay looking as new as possible for many years to come. So for this tool, I just ripped a small little piece and continued like squishing it together and glued it so it looked like it was all scrunched. I thought that looked really, really pretty when I did it, but man, does it take a lot to just kind of like really scrunch it the way you want to. So honestly, with these nails, it made it a little bit hard at first because I just haven't had them for like a long time. So it got a little bit more getting used to, but eventually you'll get it. So if you don't have nails, it might be a lot easier for you than it was for me. So in that top right corner, I decided to add this little key instead. I was going to just add the key on its own without the twine, but I figured after seeing how it was just flowing with the bow, that it would look better if it looked like it was just hanging down. And it did not glue properly when I tried this first attempt, so that's why I rubbed off the glue before it could tighten up and solidify, and moved it a little bit higher so it'd be more with that thick chain. And yeah, basically here I just experimented with where the flowers wanted to go. I did it off the speed through just so that you guys wouldn't have to like watch me pick and pry and where exactly I wanted everything. But yeah, like I said earlier, you really have to let yourself play around with it. So if you're not used to making cards like this, I would really give yourself like 2 to 3 hours to just play and get a feel of like how this kind of styling works. Honestly, I've been doing this for a few years and this card took me 2 hours. So again, like, don't get upset at yourself if it's taking you a long time. These kind of things just do. So for these gems, I used more that I got from Michaels. You can get them for really cheap if you make sure you save for the 40% off coupon, and just glued a bunch of random ones there, and some old stickers that I also got from Michaels. I think I got them 2 years ago, but yeah, little cute stickers look great with as little finishing touches. And for the very, very last thing, I used this distressing ink. And the reason I use black is because I want it to bring out the key, because the key is the only thing on there that's actually like really black that you can really see. So I thought bringing a little bit of extra black would help that look a little bit. And unfortunately with these stickers, if you do try to use them, they don't stick very well, so that's why I had to like solidify it with glue. But I ended up messing up there, so I ended up putting some more rhinestones just to kind of cover up the extra glue. That is basically it. Very short and very sweet. Hopefully you guys learned a few more tricks. Maybe in the future I'll do like a full on lessons to learn with this kind of mixed media design. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next Scrappy Wednesday. Bye!